Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Live at 5. You know what happens every single Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We get a chance to get together as a virtual community and have a conversation about, topics that are really close to home here at Carleton. My name is Stanley Philippe. I'm a recruitment officer at Carleton University, and I haven't been part of a Live at 5 in a few weeks, and I've been missing it a lot. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy you all are here too. We've had a lot of really great topics that we've covered, and the one that we're covering today is really important, and it's a really great topic to talk about in today's climate, and especially regarding what we're trying to do on our campus, which is to become a much more inclusive, representative community, and one that reflects our values and our heart and soul. And so we are talking about Indigenous initiatives here at Carleton University, and it's only fitting that we would start our conversation with the following acknowledgement. Carleton University acknowledges the location of its campus on the traditional unceded territories of the Algonquin Nation. So what we want you to do today is to participate, to ask questions. And so what you're able to do is utilize our live event Q&A to do just that. To ask your questions regarding the Indigenous initiatives that are ongoing at Carleton, about the Indigenous community at Carleton, and also just your general questions they may have about your application as well. Please feel free to ask those questions. And I brought along with me today someone who is can speak much more to the experience at Carleton, and also the initiatives that we have going on for our Indigenous community. I'm talking about Phil, who is a liaison officer with the Center for Indigenous Initiatives. So Phil will talk to you more about what Carleton has to offer, and how Carleton is trying to and continues to build on creating an inclusive community, as well as answer your questions. Again, please get your questions in for Phil to answer. All right, Phil, the mic and the screen are yours.
Kway, folks. My name is Phil Macho Commanda. I am from Kitigan-Zibi. I'm Algonquin, and I started with the Center for Indigenous Initiatives back in August. My role is the Algonquin Community Liaison Officer, so I am tasked with building relationships with the surrounding communities that are Algonquin. That would be Kitigan-Zibi and Pikwakanagan. I'm also tasked with building relationships with the surrounding organizations throughout Ottawa, and trying to make sure that the Indigenous portfolio stays on the main priorities list for Carleton, which is fantastic. 2 years ago it started with the Truth and Reconciliation recommendations. So Carleton took that, adopted them, and came up with our own. It's called the Kinamagoan Report. In this report, it highlights the need for, it highlights the need for continued Indigenous support for our Indigenous students. And in them is the 41 calls to action. In the 41 calls to action, it's Carleton's way of being keeping the Indigenous portfolio alive. So my job is to basically go through the 41 calls to action and see how Carleton is implementing them and helping them guide their way if they should have questions about what they should be doing. So that's kind of the bulk of my role. But I'm also here on behalf of the Center for Indigenous Initiatives. The Center for Indigenous Initiatives is a growing team. We're up to 6 presently right now, with plans to be hiring more staff for support. In our department, we have many supports for Indigenous students. And within the supports, I'll start off first with the Ojibwanog Center. The Ojibwanog Center is the student center that students have access to. Within the center, there's a lounge, there's desks, there's computers, printers, there's phones, there's a little kitchenette. There's an office where one staff member, we alternate during a non-COVID year, I should say. We alternate the office, and a different staff member will sit there. to be any kind of support or liaison between the staff and the students. Within the Indigenous Center, we have a lot of programming. This year, the programming has been very unique because of COVID. So everything is like with anything else, it's all online. Now, the programs that we offer within the Ojibwe Center and under the Center of Indigenous Initiatives programming is our Vanessa Sear is our program coordinator, and she's been coming up with some really amazing programs and crafts and things just to engage the students, to make sure that the students realize that there's other Indigenous students out there. It's sort of a platform, a virtual platform where we get to meet and greet with you. So she's been doing a lot of things. Like there was a painting that she had done this year. So kits were sent out to each student, and we were painting a picture that her niece was guiding. And in the end, the student was able to take away, I think it was a 14 by 11 size canvas, and it was a beautiful flower. And during the Friday afternoon that they were doing this, it was conversation. We tried to make it as home feeling as possible. So Vanessa already had a myth making workshop. Another one should be coming up soon. She does a lot of crafts, a lot of beading, and she organizes our elder talks. So once every 2 weeks, we have an elder come in. It's usually Barbara Dumont Hill. She's our resident elder this year. And she does a general teaching to those who want to attend. Normally would be held within the Ojibwe Center, and we'd have a light lunch provided. But again, with COVID, it's been all online. But it's sort of it's a Zoom meeting, and our elder gives a teaching on what she feels is important and pertinent information for the time. She also offers a one-on-one. So if you feel that you need guidance from an elder, you can book a time with Barbara, and she will meet with you and talk through whatever it is that you feel you need guidance with. The Center for Indigenous Initiatives also offers counseling, Indigenous counseling. So our counselors are Stacy and Riley, and they are certified counselors, and they know how to work with you when working with Indigenous issues. One of the concerns that was brought up prior was that in mainstream counseling, they're not as great and as helpful as they are. They're not keen to Indigenous specific issues, and that's what Stacy and Riley provide, is that they know what they're talking about, and they know what you're talking about, and they're very, very helpful in help guiding you down whatever path that it is that you want to get on. Our counselor Riley has been, this year she was nominated and she won for, I think it's Counseling Excellency. There was a wide pool from across Canada, and our Riley got the award. So we're very proud of her for that. She's a fantastic woman. Throughout the year, we also want to put on events that are family-based. So within the Indigenous circles, we have a strong sense of family and community, and that's what we try to create here with the Center of Indigenous Initiatives. So we have powwows. The powwow is usually in collaboration with other post-secondary institutions in Ottawa. So Carleton, or Algonquin, or Ottawa U, Cégep, La Cité. It's a joint adventure where we all put our resources together to have one amazing powwow that kicks off the school year. And it's great for newcomers who come to the school who are not really sure of the Indigenous community that's within Ottawa, not only within Carleton, but within Ottawa. And it helps form those bonds that you are going to have through not only for your academic career, but for your life. Speaking from personal experience, I went to school at Algonquin, I went to school at Carleton, I went to school at Canadore College and Nipissing University in North Bay. And my biggest friendships that I have formed in the past 10 years was because of the Indigenous Center. These are people that I still hold within my life. I contact them on a regular basis. Even though I moved back to Ottawa from North Bay, I still have that strong connection to North Bay. And I guess what I could say is, when you're starting your academic journey, reach out to the Indigenous centers. They really are there to help you. They are there to support you. They are there to encourage the community. A lot of students, when they leave their communities, which tend to be smaller and a little bit more remote, when coming to the city can be a bit of a culture shock. So the Center of Indigenous Initiatives at Carleton, but also the centers within the other post-secondary schools, have the resources to help you integrate comfortably into the city and to feel like home. We also have round dances throughout the year, and that's a really fun social activity where friends and family are all welcome. It's usually in the gym, the Ravens gym, and it's an all-day event that goes into the evening, and it's all ages, all walks of life are welcome, and you get to meet new friends at that point and see old friends as well. One of the initiatives that not only Carleton does, but the other post-secondary schools throughout Ottawa is the Indigenous graduation honoring ceremony. This is different from a convocation. For the Indigenous honoring ceremony, there is no limit to seats. You can, if you have 20 aunties and 30 uncles, your parents and your kids, they're all welcome to come and join for this amazing accomplishment. And it's usually held at the end of April, not this year though, but next year. We're starting the plans for next year. It will be on for next year, and it's a place where you are free to showcase your regalia. If you want to wear your regalia, you are free to bring your kids with you across the stage. For parents, it's to showcase why they worked so hard for these, X amount of years. Then they did it for their kids, and it's a really proud sense that they get when they're able to cross the stage to receive their diploma and have their children with them. It's followed by Indigenous talent for entertainment, and usually Indigenous-based foods afterwards. And it's held at the end of April because before students go home back to their communities for the summer, and they might miss out on the summer convocation that formally is held by Carleton. So that's something that, again, that I've been a part of. I've been a student in the in partaking in the ceremony, and I've also been on the planning part of this one. And it's just something that I'm very passionate about, that every Indigenous student should have their degrees and diplomas honored in such an intimate way. So I think that brings about kind of an overview of what the Center for Indigenous Initiatives does. Now, in order to get a hold of us, if you have any questions, we can be reached at indigenous@carleton.ca. I'll put that in the chat, just if you guys have any general questions. You can reach out to the general mailbox. I'll put in my email address as well if you guys have a more direct question for me. And what I suggest is, if you're really interested in taking part in the Carleton Indigenous community, subscribe to our newsletter. And you can find that on the carleton.ca/Indigenous website. There's a link for our newsletter. Once you subscribe to that, you will get I'm wearing the same sweater. I just noticed that. Yeah, so if you subscribe to the newsletter, you'll be informed in any and upcoming activities that the Center for Indigenous Initiatives office is holding. You'll be up to date with bursaries, scholarships. We try to keep it as up-to-date as possible. We have a student worker who that's her position is to update and keep everything updated so that the students have the current knowledge of what's happening. I think that's it for me. I think I gave a pretty good overview, but I'm looking forward to any and all questions. I'm here to answer them.
Yeah, Phil, you definitely did give a great overview, and I should mention that when you were talking about the Indigenous graduation ceremony, I was like, man, this sounds really cool. And then someone wrote, "Wow, this sounds amazing." There's been 3 likes to it, so it definitely resonated. What we'll do is we'll throw you back on. I know you're rocking the same sweater. It is, a pandemic. We all wear the exact same things all the time. But we'll get you back on screen because there are some questions that we want you to answer that were asked. So the first question was, do I need to self-identify as Indigenous when I come to Carleton?
So there's 2 options for that. When you're applying with your OUAC onto the university's application of Ontario, you can self-identify there. If not, you can contact the registrar's office and identify with them. And then the third way is if you contact the Centre for Indigenous Initiatives and register with us. So that you have 3 different options to self-identify that you're Indigenous, and then be able to partake in the community.
Yeah, so I'll just add to that, like, so if you're thinking about identifying prior to attending to Carleton, that's where UAC will come into play. Yeah. If you're thinking about identifying once you get on campus, and then like Phil mentioned, the registrar's office or the Center for Indigenous Initiatives is definitely the place you want to go. There's a question here about the Ojibwe Center. This student expressed that they're not Indigenous. Can they still visit the center?
For the most part, yes. We do have we have an open door policy, especially when it comes to allies. There's just a few restrictions with that. When it comes to anything ceremonial, we ask that non-Indigenous people kind of respect that this is our ceremony. And other than that, though, pretty much everything else is open up to anybody.
And you talked a bit about Kinamagwin and how important that's been in terms of getting us to really have these 41 calls to action, which will allow us to really understand and connect with our communities. Someone would like to know if you can give an example of one of those calls to action that maybe you had a chance to look into and to check in on.
Yeah, so I'm looking at there's a couple sections to the 41 calls to action. The first one is community engagement, and that's more or less where I fit into the team. I focus on community engagement, and it's to ensure that the relationships between Carleton and students and Carleton and the Indigenous community is built, maintained, and respected. We also have the Indigenous student support, both academic and cultural. Again, that's where the Center of Indigenous Initiatives comes in. We try to have as much programming as we can to support the diverse Indigenous community. So that's not just First Nations, it's also the Inuit community and the Métis community and the queer community. So we're trying to make sure that we're as inclusive as possible using the resources that we have. The other sections are student experience. So the student experience goes from not only recruitment to retention, but also to graduation and beyond. So we're a support system that we're active with recruiting for sure. That's with any post-secondary school. Every post-secondary school has their own unique ideas on attracting students. Carleton is the same thing, and we try to have an open door policy with our Indigenous students. When it comes to retention, we are there to support, we are there to help. One of the things that I can say from my personal journey in academia was that I reached out to the support services, and I graduated with a degree in environmental biology, but I feel like I came out with a master's in student support. I never thought I would be a university student. I always felt more comfortable in college. I'm more hands-on, but reaching out to any of the student services and student support services, I have to say was probably one of my biggest achievements in going to school and knowing how to reach out to these services. It's so important, and for us on the CII team, we're there to help break down any barriers that students may have. And we understand that it's not only academic barriers, but it's personal barriers, it's personal health barriers, mental support barriers, all kinds of barriers. And we do try to have that holistic approach when working with students and trying to support their academic journey. And then graduation, we all celebrate our grads. Our grads are something that we're so proud of, and every year we're sad to see our grads go, but at the same time, we're so glad that they completed their journey and now they're on to their next step. A lot of our students come back to us too for support. So if that would also be for job search, we're always there to help and to make sure that the student has been supported from the beginning right to the end. We also have the 41 calls to actions also includes ways of teaching and learning. So Indigenous knowledge and awareness. What we're trying to do with this is create specific courses throughout programs that have an Indigenous lens to it. Having the Truth and Reconciliation Commission highlight what's happening with Canadian Indigenous people. We feel that it's important that each Canadian who goes through the post-secondary school route should have a basic fundamental knowledge of the plight that Indigenous people have faced. There's a lot of dark history in that, but there's also a lot of positivity when we see our success and where our people have come from and to where we are going. So Carleton is really committed to helping educate our future students. So we also have culture, systems, and structure. Again, that's setting up organizations within the university that are Indigenous specific. We have one that's coming up. It's a research ethics board. It's Indigenous based, Indigenous led. So it helps future researchers guide their way through their research methods when working with Indigenous communities. We have research and innovation. There's a lot of new programming that's coming up that focuses on the Indigenous lens. I'm hoping to start one that has the environmental aspect. That's my background. So Carleton is very open to listening to the Indigenous students and the Indigenous staff to further their 41 calls to action to make sure that they're implemented and to make sure that it's on the forefront of Carleton's mandate.
When you think about Carleton's, and there's a question that was asked in the Q&A, when you think about Carleton's Indigenous community within the kind of provincial or Canadian landscape, would you say that Carleton has a strong Indigenous presence, Indigenous kind of a support for the Indigenous communities on campus?
So that's okay. I will start off with having Pikwakanagan and Kitigan-Zibi close to the capital. A lot of the students will start off with Algonquin College, and from Algonquin College they'll realize, okay, I'm here. I finished my program. What's my next step? Carleton seems to be one of the first universities that students look at. So we are there for the students to build that community. Being from Kitigan-Zibi and being here in Ottawa, my community is only about 130 kilometers, so I'm either here or there. And I know a lot of people who from my community have come to Carleton and have been very successful and have worked. I know a handful who are working on their PhD. And I know even more that are working on their masters all after their undergrad. So the Carleton has and recognizes that the Indigenous students are an untapped resource, that we are up and coming, that we are, we're passionate about our education now. Not saying that we weren't, but now it's normalized now, and that we're ready, willing, and able to participate in these very important discussions that are being taken place.
We're going to end with this last question. The student wants to know, Phil, what's your favorite thing about Carleton's Indigenous community?
My favorite thing, hands down, is the connectedness. So again, I'll give a personal story. I know a lot of students in the Carleton community, and I've known them for many years. When I was younger, way younger, there's two of them that I used to babysit, and watching them grow and go through their elementary, from daycare to elementary to secondary to post-secondary, and now they're graduating from post-secondary with, amazing degrees. I think that's, for me, to be personally involved with the students, for some of them since they were toddlers to now, and seeing them grow. I think that's my favorite part, and to know that there's a really, really strong community there, that lifelong friends. I have met when I went to Carleton. I met lifelong friends that I'm still in contact with, and I went there in 2013. I think that's my most favoriteest part about Carleton is the definite the community and the connected.
Well, for our attendees, their favorite part of today's event was you, Phil. So thank you so much for sharing so much great information and a lot of personal stories as well, and for making everyone feel so welcome. So thank you.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm really, really glad that you invited me. I'm going to, before I pop off, I'll put on the general email for the CII, as well as my my personal, well, not my personal, but my work email.
Yeah, maybe we can add it to the live event Q&A portion there. We can make a note for our attendees so they can get that information for sure.
Sounds good.
So before we wrap things up officially, I just want to say again, thank you all for attending this evening's event. Next week, we're going to be featuring our cooperative education program. So if you are thinking about co-op, it'll be a live at 5 you're not going to want to miss. And of course, check out our admissions website for the latest information, as well as your 360 account, 360.carleton.ca. And for a lot of awesome, fun content, please follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Carleton_future is our handle. So my name is Stelling Philippe. Again, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we hope to see you soon. Take care.